the Crown, our Constitution and the institutions that it created, that they may not be working properly. The system may not be working properly because the inputs are so different now. So I would just say that. And then I also wanted to ask Professor Tribe, I see your point about could we know that the Supreme Court would or wouldn't step in, and you suggested that they wouldn't, who would have standing to bring a case. I used to think that before Bush v. Gore. I didn't think they would step in to Bush v. Gore. So I just wondered about your thoughts on that.
You really know how to hurt a guy. No, there are surprises everywhere. I want to respond primarily to what Nick said. I do agree that there's a difference between an Article V convention, which I read the Constitution to contemplate, some creature that would be an Article V convention, and a totally new convention of the sort that I think Sandy Levinson, though he can speak for himself, advocates. It's just that I don't know the metes and bounds of those differences. Now, does that lead me to think we should never have another Article V convention? No, I agree very much with Nick. There's a first time for everything. And I do believe that there may be certain kinds of systemic breakdowns where a large majority of the people of the United States want something to happen. For example, and I take this just as an example, they want to limit the ability of amassed corporate wealth to dominate American politics. Now, I count myself as part of that group. I've helped people in Congress to introduce an amendment that would try specifically to overturn Citizens United. It was introduced by Donna Edwards just a few days ago. But it may be the case that the very things that make us want to change the influence of corporate money on politics will make it essentially inconceivable that Congress would propose that amendment to the states. Now, if we get that kind of lockdown, which is what I think led, though he can certainly speak for himself, Larry Lessig to suggest the exploration of a new convention, then I think we're at least in the territory where there's perhaps a plausible systemic case for a limited purpose convention, assuming enough people can be convinced that it could be limited. I don't think, and that's why I think it's sort of an interesting question whether we can take the people who favor a convention in that direction, which I would say the left direction, and those who favor a convention to restrict the national debt or a convention to restrict national power over commerce. It's hard for me to imagine how those two vectors can come together. And it's the second impulse, which I think is largely